everyone, this is Songwee and I'm back with another Python project. So today we're going to be making a password generator. Now this doesn't involve graphics or anything super complicated, but it's still super useful for when you want to make a strong password that's going to be random, but still available for you to easily make. So first, let's start off with what is a password. So passwords in essence, or strong password, is made up of special characters, letters, and numbers. So there's this thing called ASCII, which is the abbreviation for American Standard Code for Information Interchange, which is the way that characters are encoded for things like computers, telecommunications, and other electronic stuff in general. So ASCII has 128 characters, so it has the numbers from 0 to 9, uppercase and lowercase letters, the entire alphabet, and special characters like the @ symbol, the ampersand, percent symbol, $, etc. So in this project, we're going to be using the random module and learning how to convert strings to lists and then lists to strings. So the random module is a module that Python has, and it allows you to do things like shuffle randomly, choose numbers or letters randomly, and things like that. For converting strings to lists, there are two ways. There's split or list, and those are functions. And today we're going to be using list, and I'll explain why a bit later on when we're coding. And for converting lists to strings, we're going to use the join function, which I'll also be showing you later on. All right, now let's get coding. So first we're going to import random, since that's the module we're going to be using. And we're also going to import string, since we're going to be using strings in this project. So first we want to make a list called characters, and basically this is going to contain all of the characters that we're going to choose from. So for example, we're going to have the ASCII, all of the letters, since that's one of the options it gives us. We're going to have all the numbers, which is string.digits, and all the special characters. So all these special characters are going to just be all of those, the ones on top of your normal numbers right there. Now we can make a function called makePassword. So let's create a simple function that will just scramble these letters randomly from these characters list and then return something. So why don't you go ahead and try that, and then we'll do it together. So pause the video here and try that out. All right, what we can do is we can take the length that someone wants for their password and get it as a user input. So if you remember how to do that from our previous Hangman video, then the way we do that is we can assign a variable, so I'll just call it length, and then we'll take the input of whatever they want. So the message I'll put is, I guess, something like put in password's desired length, and you can put in whatever you want. And since we want it to be an integer, we'll make it an integer by putting the integer here. And so that will make the length value an integer. And then we want to take the characters and shuffle them. So here we're using the random module, the shuffle function of the random module. Now we're going to make a variable called password, and we're going to add a new character from this random choice of characters into the password. So for I in range of length, we're going to go ahead, and the way we're going to do this is we're going to create a new password variable and use the old password variable to put it in a for loop. So take some time to do that right now, and then we'll do it together in a second. Okay, so how I do this is we make a new variable called new password, and then we're going to take the old password and add on a random choice from the characters list. And then we're going to turn this password variable into what we have as the new password currently. So by doing that, we're assigning what the new password is into this password variable. So essentially now this new password is this. So password essentially becomes password plus random choice of characters, but we're using another variable in between to do that. And then we can print our password once we're done with the for loop. And don't forget, we have to call the make password function at the end or else it won't run. All right, so let's go ahead and run this and see what we get. All right, so we have put in our password's desired length. I'm gonna go ahead and put in 10. Yep, and we get 10. So now what we want to do is we want to make it so that we can kind of choose the number of numbers we want, the number of letters we want, and the number of special characters we want. So why don't you take a couple minutes to see if you can do that by yourself by messing with this make password function, and then we'll go ahead and do it together. So pause the video now and try that out. All right. So the way to do this so that we can choose the number is what I'm going to do is I'm essentially going to kind of make like 3 copies of this. So one for letters, one for numbers, and then one for special characters. And so the way I'm going to do this is we're going to make this as kind of like one section. We'll put the print to the side since that's what we're going to be doing last. And so we'll have one section for letters, one section for numbers, and one section for special characters. So I'm going to change this to be called letter length, and then change this to be number of letters so that we know that we're putting in letters. And I'm also going to change this as letter password because it's just going to be the password in letters, which means I'm going to change the length of this to letter length accordingly. And then I'm also going to make this letter password so that we don't get confused with the other passwords. And in here, we want to put the specific letters. So if you remember from up here how to get the letters, it'll be string dot ASCII letters. And then just like in here, just like we did before, we'll change this to letter password. And this is essentially like the same chunk we'll be repeating for number length and the special length. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and then paste it 2 more times for special characters and then the numbers. So you can go ahead and change all of the variables accordingly. Alright, so now everything's been changed. So we have our special password, our number password, and our letter password. So now we're just going to combine these all into one big password. So I'm going to call this final password, and I'm just going to go ahead and add all of the passwords together. Alright, so now we have our final password. We can print final password here to make sure that we're doing everything correctly. It's always good to test your code in the middle before you're completely done with it so that you know that you're not making any huge mistakes in the middle, and then once you run everything, it'll be really hard to find out where the error is. Okay, so here we can put in 1, 2, 3, and then it gives us our password. So we know that our final password, adding all of them together, is working correctly. But if it's always like this, then it's just going to be a series of like letters, numbers, and passwords. We want to mix it up. So here is where we're going to use the shuffle function from the random module and convert strings to lists and lists to strings. So before we print this out, we want to shuffle it, but the shuffle function works with lists and not just strings, which means we have to convert the string of this final password into a list. So the way we do that is I'm going to create a new variable called list password, and here we're just going to use the function list to turn this final password into a list. So here we can use list because we know that each of the individual characters, we want it to be a single element inside of the list. So each single character will be a separate element in the list, but sometimes we want to use split instead. And so that's when, for example, we have like a sentence and we want to separate different words into different elements of a list. So then we can specify what kind of character we want to use as a separation, along with like the maximum number of splits that we want. But for our purposes, list is a lot simpler and it works just fine. So now we have a list password. But if we go ahead and print this out, then what we'll see is a list. So you can see here we have a list. And now we're going to shuffle this list since we can use that function. So we're going to do random.shuffle. So now that this is shuffled, we're going to convert it back to a string. So the way we convert it back is using this join function. So this is kind of what you want to be in between all of the elements of the list. We don't want anything in between it since it's a password. So we're going to leave it empty, and then we're going to do .join and put what we're joining. So we're joining list password. And then you could assign another variable to this, but we can also just print right away and go ahead and just do print. Once we run, we can put in our desired number of letters and we'll get a password. And you can see that the symbols and the letters are shuffled. They're not all next to each other or in the same place. And you can essentially do this as many times as you'd like as well. Alright, that's all for this video. I hope you learned a lot and I'll see you next time. Bye!